Welcome back, Class 10, your physical education class. Today, we will be starting a new chapter, Safety in Sports. While playing any sort of sports, safety factor is a very important factor because the players who are playing that particular sports should be safe while playing that sports because they should avoid sports injury. So to achieve or maintain high level of performance, a sports person has to maintain high levels of safety standards to minimize injuries. Injuries will be there while you are playing, especially while you are playing contact sports, outdoor games, not indoor games. While playing chess, chances are you will not get injured. While playing billiard or poker, you will not get injured. These are indoor games. Chances are that you will not get injured if unfortunately the ceiling fan falls on your head. That's a different issue. But if you are playing an outdoor game, contact sports, of course chances are there the sports person will get injured. But if one maintains high level of performance regarding safety standards, chances are the injury will be minimized by proper strengthening of body muscles, proper conditioning, selecting proper place for workout, and giving rest to the body will ensure health. By avoiding the main causes of injuries, one can minimize injuries. The main causes are, what are the main causes of injuries? The main causes are overuse of muscle group, improper warming up, improper stopping and twisting, falls, impact from equipment. Impact means hitting, the equipment is hitting against the body, or you are hitting against an equipment, object, hitting against the ground, falling on the ground, hitting with a person, trying different activity, fatigue, improper technique, and lack of rest. Interestingly, if you see overuse of a particular muscle group, improper warming up, improper stopping and twisting, fatigue, that means tiredness, improper technique, and lack of rest, these are also factors which will cause sports injury. It's not that you are hitting against somebody, you are falling on the ground, you are breaking a hand, or hitting against the goal post. Not like that. If you are not properly rested, if your muscle is not properly warmed up, if you are not properly stopping, twisting, working out, these factors are also very important in causing sports injury. Sports related injuries: muscle strain or pulled muscles. Muscle strains are common sports injuries among sports person. Strain is a damage, stretch, tear, pull, or rip of a muscle, rip to a muscle or a tendon. It is caused by intense and rapid contraction, is demand for a muscle. So what is strain? Strain is a damage, it's a stretch, tear, pull, or rip to a muscle or a tendon. Such contractions can be too strong and muscle fibers are unable to resist. Chronic strains results from overuse of muscles and tendons or inadequate rest during intensive training. Chronic strain means you are very susceptible to strain of the muscles. Why is it? Because you are not taking proper training. Your muscle is overused. Your inadequate rest you are giving. So for examples of common strain injuries are hamstring strain, quadricep muscle strain, calf strain, groin strain, rotator cuff tear, long head biceps rupture, Achilles tendon rupture. Muscle strain injuries can be classified into three types. Grade 1, grade 2 and grade 3. Grade 1 is a mild strain. Grade 2 is a moderate strain. And grade 3 is a severe strain. So grade 1 strain or mild strain. Slight stretching and some damage to the fibers or tendon of the ligament is mild strain. Strains are micro tears, small tears that allow full functionality. There is no decrease in strength and there is full active and passive range of motion. The range of motion is perfect during mild strain. The range of motion is not hampered. Now coming to moderate grade strain or grade 2, partial tearing of the muscle fiber of tendon. Partially the muscle fiber of tendon is torn. Grade 2 strain are more detrimental, means disadvantages to the functionality of the muscles. The functionality of the muscle will be hampered. There is a noticeable decrease in strength output. The strength will also decrease. Grade 3 or severe strain, complete tear of the muscle fiber or tendon is grade 3. Grade 3 strains are full rupture of the muscles, either at a bony attachment site, bony attachment where the muscle is attached to the bone, or within the muscle belly, inside the muscle belly. This is the muscle and the inside is known as the muscle belly. Individual will not be able to activate the muscle, will not be able to move that particular muscle where this severe muscle strain or grade 3 muscle strain has happened. What are the causes of muscle strain or pull? Number 1, more pressure is exerted to a muscle that it can bear. Insufficient warming up. Warming up is not, a muscle is not toned properly for the activity. Number 3, muscles are stiff and tight, therefore susceptible to injury. Lack of flexibility, that is overstretching of muscles is susceptible to tear unless one has restored flexibility by stretching. Too much training can cause injury. Lack of physical fitness. Poor training method like inappropriate workload, speed and resistance. What are the symptoms? Swelling around the affected area. The area where the muscle tear has happened, that area will be swollen up. Pain while moving and stretching the strained area. You will feel the pain while moving or stretching that area. Muscle spasm, muscle will be contracted, painful contraction around the injured site, and it will be very, painful to touch, tender to touch. Loss of strength, there will be loss of strength in that particular area, and inflammation, it will be swollen up. What is the first aid given? It is Pricer. Previously it was only rice. Now it is Pricer. That means protection, rest, ice, application, compression, elevation. Previously it was only rice. That means rest, ice, compression, elevation. Now it has become protection, rest, ice, compression, elevation and referral. Now what is protection? Protection means Pricer, P-R-I-C-E-R. P stands for protection, R stands for rest, I stands for ice or ice application, C stands for compression, E stands for elevation and R stands for referral. Protection means protect the area from further injury. The area which has been injured, you have to protect that area to stop further injury. Provide rest, then comes rest. Provide rest and stop using the injured part. That injured part will be given rest. No movement will be there in order to aid recovery. Apply ice over the affected area. Over the affected area, ice has to be applied. Compress the area. The area has to be compressed. Apply proper bandaging to avoid movement. Proper bandaging will be there to avoid any further movement. Elevate the injured area. The injured area should be elevated, put on a distance, not in a distance, at a level, so that swelling can be reduced. Edema, accumulation of fluid will be reduced. Suppose you have sprained your ankle, the ankle is elevated, kept on a distance, at a height, not a distance, as a height, so that the fluid accumulation is not there. Elevate the injured part, keep it in a height. At last, referral means refer the casualty to a competent doctor. If the casualty is third grade, that means grade 3 severe, then you should refer to a competent doctor. Torn ACL, anterior cruciate ligament, if that is there, anterior cruciate ligament is one of the major stabilizing ligaments of the knee. Major stabilizing ligament of the knee. It runs diagonally in the middle of the knee. It holds the tibia in place and keeps it from sliding and moving in front of the femur bone. It provides rotational stability of the knee. Most ACL injuries happen during sports and fitness activities that give stress on the knee. So ACL ligament injury can be classified into 3 types depending on mild, moderate and severe. In mild ACL injury, the ligament is mildly damaged. It has high chance that it will recover. It has been slightly stretched, but it's still able to keep the knee joint stable. Moderate injury means the ligament stretches to the point when it becomes loose. This is often referred to as partial tear of the ligament, not fully torn. A part of the ligament is torn. Then comes grade 3, which is severe anterior cruciate ligament injury, ACL. The ligament is completely torn, the ligament has been split into 2 pieces and the knee joint is unstable, very dangerous. What are the causes? Causes are suddenly slowing down and changing direction while cutting, You're running, suddenly you are changing direction. Pivoting with foot firmly planted. Your foot is firmly planted and you are turning. So there's a twist based on the knee. Landing from a jump incorrectly. Stopping suddenly. Receiving a direct blow to the knee or a collision such as football tackle. What are the symptoms? Loud pop or a popping sensation in the knee. Severe pain and inability to continue activity. Swelling that begins within a few hours. Loss in the range of motion. Feeling instability or giving away with weight bearing. That means you will not be able to stand, not be able to stand for long. You will not be able to, your knee muscles or your knee becomes unstable. So what is the first aid? Again, Pricer. Protection, rest, ice application, compression, elevation and referral, which we have discussed. This is the first aid. Now, torn ACL, now torn MCL, medial collateral ligament. Now, medial collateral ligament is one of the 4 major ligaments of the knee. It connects the femur, that is the thigh bone, to the tibia, that is the shin bone, along inside of the knee. It also stabilizes ligament when one is running, walking and doing some physical activities. Torn MCL is overstretched or tear of the ligament on the inside of the knee. Medial collateral ligament injury can be classified again into 3 types. Grade 1 is mild, grade 2 is moderate, grade 3 is severe. In grade 1, ligament is mildly damaged. It can be seen slightly stretched. It's still able to keep the knee joint stable. In moderate injury, the ligament stretches to the point where it becomes loose. This is often referred to as partial tear of the ligament. And in severe, the ligament is completely torn. The ligament is split into 2 pieces and the knee joint is unstable. What are the causes? Hit or collision to the knee from outside, such as football tackle, where with a heavy boot, your knee is kicked and all. Improper landing after a jump, overstretching of the ligament. What are the symptoms? A pop or a popping sound upon injury. Pain and tenderness. Tenderness is very, very painful to touch along the inner part of the knee. Swelling of the knee joint. A feeling that the knee is going to give out when you are put weight on it. So, again, what is the first aid? It is Pricer, protection, rest, Icse application, compression, elevation, and referral. Now, another injury comes, that is shin splits. Shin splits, it's a tongue twister. Shin splits are acute pain in the shin and lower legs or tibia bone. They are most often found in athletes who run for a longer duration. There are two types of shin splits, anterior and posterior. The most common is posterior, which is technically referred to as medial tibial stress symptom, MTSS. MTSS is an inflammation of the tibial posterior muscles that runs along the inside of the shin. Anterior shin splints are an inflammation of the tibia's anterior muscles, which runs along the front and outside of the shin. What are the causes? Prolonged running on a hard surface, having flat feet or abnormally rigid arc, lack of calcium, running up an inclined place, previous leg injury, poorly fitted or inadequate running shoes that do not support the foot and ankle, less flexibility or less flexible shoes or shoe that has poor force absorption qualities. Force absorption quality means when you are landing on a surface, the shoe or the proper running shoe will be able to absorb that shock of landing. That is shock absorption or force absorption qualities. Overuse of the body part, that is overuse of the lower leg. Running on an uneven surface. Running on surfaces that are too hard or too soft. Participating in running or in any athletic activities requires frequent starts and stops. All of a sudden you are starting, all of a sudden you are stopping. Getting too hard or too long during repeated exercise bouts. Running, walking, bicycle riding, and even standing at one place for a long period. Weakness of the leg muscles. Loose ligaments in the foot and sudden change in the training. What are the symptoms? A dull ache in front part of the lower leg, muscular pain, pain along the inner part of the leg, mild swelling in the lower leg, numbness, that means losing of sensation, and weakness of the feet. Now, what is the first aid? Again, Pricer, protection, rest, Icse application, compression, elevation, and referral means referring to the doctor if the injury is extremely severe. So, today we have learned a lot of injury, muscle strain and pull muscles we have learned, torn ACL we have learned, torn MCL we have studied, and we have studied shin splint. At the next class, we'll start with other types of injuries, starting off with stress fracture. So that is all for today. Thank you.